Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a trillium flower. So I'm in the process of making a bunch of videos about flowers, and the next one on the list is the trillium. This is Ontario's flower, which is the province that I live in. So I'm excited to figure out how we're going to create the shape of the petals, what we're going to do for the leaves and for the stem. So if you want to learn how to make a trillium with me, keep watching. For this project, we're going to need some yarn. I'm going to be using this white for the color of my trillium, and then I've got some greens and yellows for the stem and for the center part of the flower. These are all about a number 4 weight. You're also going to need a crochet hook. I'm going to be using a 3.5mm hook today. You'll also need some scissors, as well as a yarn needle to weave in your ends and to sew it together in the end. You'll also need some thread. You could use the yarn that you're crocheting with, but in some parts, thread is going to be a little bit more helpful for us. And last but not least, you're gonna need some stitch markers. If you don't have stitch markers, you can just take a piece of yarn and cut it a couple of inches long, and then tie that piece of yarn on the area that I say mark with a stitch marker so that you can kind of keep track of your stitches. It just makes it easier for counting. So gather your supplies and let's jump in. All right, we're gonna begin with the petal. So I'm going to start by making a slip knot. From here, I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now in the second chain from the hook, 1 and 2, I'm gonna do a single crochet. I'm gonna insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Into the next stitch, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and in the last stitch of the row, insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So there's 3 stitches in my row right now. For row number 2, we'll start with a chain of 1, and then we're going to put 2 single crochets in the first stitch and 2 single crochets in the last stitch. So we're putting an increase at both sides. 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets. And then in the middle stitch, we'll put 1. And then in the last stitch of the row, we'll put 2. So there's 3 here, and that makes 4. And there's 5. So at the end of row 2, you should have 5. Then we'll chain 1 and turn. Now in row 3, we're gonna start with 1 single crochet in that first stitch. So single crochet it normally. And then we're gonna single crochet across the row. At the end of the row though, in the last stitch, we're gonna put 2 single crochets. There's 5. And then we're putting an extra stitch in there, which will put us up to 6 stitches at the end of row number 3. And then we'll chain 1 and turn. And now for row number 4, we're gonna put 2 single crochets in the first stitch and 2 single crochets in the last stitch. 1, 2, and then we'll crochet across, 3, 4, and then in the last stitch, 7 and 8. So we're up to 8 stitches now in the row for row number 4. And now row number 5, we'll start with a chain 1 and turn. And row number 5, we're gonna start with just 1 single crochet in that first stitch, so no increase. So for all of the even rows, we're gonna be putting 2 single crochets in the beginning of the row and 2 single crochets at the end of the row. For all odd rows, we'll be putting 1 single crochet in the first stitch and 2 in the last stitch for those rows. I hope that that made sense. So I'm going to continue this pattern until I get my rectangle, or whatever shape this is gonna be, to be a little bit longer, because the length here is the height of the petal. So it's the length of the full petal. So pretty much this is the side of our petal, and we're increasing out until the petal is the length we want. And one side of the petal is increasing more sharply, and one side is increasing more in a tapered way. So it's gonna have like a curved shape. That's what's happening here, in case you didn't understand. So I'm going to continue along here, and I'm gonna get to the end of, what is this, row 5. And in the last stitch, I'm going to do, oh my goodness, 2 single crochets. There's 1 and and there's 2. Then I'll chain 1 and turn, and then I'm going to put 2 single crochets in the first stitch, 1 and 2, and I'm going to crochet all the way down. And in the last stitch of the row, since this is an even row, I'm on row number 6, we're going to put 2 single crochets in the last stitch. And I'm just going to repeat that until I get to a point where my petal is long enough. I hope that you understand the repeat at this point. If not, go back, put it on half speed or something. I hope that I made it make sense. I hope that I made it make sense. Gosh, I hope that I made it make sense. But anyway, I'm gonna just zoom through until mine is long enough, and I'll come back here to show you how many stitches I'm at and how many rows that ended up being. All right, I think I made it to the size that I want mine to be. So I'm gonna do my last row here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 15, 16, and 17 is how many stitches are in the row, but at this end I always do 2 single crochets, so that brings us up to 18 stitches, and that is on row number 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, row number 11. Look at that. So this is the bottom of the petal. It's going to curve out this way, and we're going to crochet around to soften that, and then it comes out long the other way. Make sense? All right, so we're going to go into row number 12 with a chain of 1, and then we're going to start doing decreases now. So for these first 2 stitches, we're going to single crochet 2 together. So I'm going to do insert into the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, insert into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Now I have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Now those 2 single crochets have become 1, which is going to help shape it down the other way. From here, we're going to single crochet all the way across, and at the end of the row, we're going to single crochet 2 together. We're doing the exact opposite of what we've been doing thus far. So I'm just gonna zoom down the row, and I'll meet you at the end to show you our single crochet 2 together again. Here I am at the end of the row with 2 stitches left in my row. I'll insert my hook into the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then I'll insert my hook into the last stitch. The last one snug. Yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And then I'll chain 1 and turn. And now this is an odd row. This is row number 13. For row number 13, we're gonna start with a single crochet in the first stitch, single crochet across, but at the end of the row, single crochet 2 together. So just like when we were doing the increases, we're doing the decreases on the odd rows only on one side of the work. It's creating this asymmetrical sort of movement that we want to create the petal. And here I am at the end of the row with 2 single crochets left. I'll insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, insert into the last stitch of the row, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3, then I'll chain 1 and turn. And then in the first 2 stitches, insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. And now I'm going to single crochet down the row, and at the end of the row, since this is another even row, I'm going to single crochet 2 together. And from here, I'm going to repeat this until I only have 3 stitches left in my row. I'm basically just mirroring what we did for the other side. By reducing on one side, we end up with a nice soft taper, and reducing more drastically on the other side, we just end up with an asymmetrical petal shape. So just trust me. Keep doing the decreases on one side for one row, both sides for the other row, until there's 3 left in the row. And I'll meet you back here when I'm ready with that. Here I am on row number 21, and I'm doing my last single crochet 2 together, and there is my row of 3 stitches. So now I'm going to yarn over and pull it through so that I can show you how the petal looks at this point. Okay, so because we did those increases, we did an increase on both sides, and then just an increase on this side, and then on both sides, and then just on this side, and then both sides, and then we switched to a decrease where we did a decrease on both sides, then just this side, then both sides, then just this side, then both sides, then just this side, and that creates the shape for our trillium. And we can choose which direction looks better for the inside versus the outside of the petal, but this is the shape that I'm going for, with this being where the flower actually connects. Because when you pinch this together, you see how it's like a triangle? It's like a good triangular petal. We still have to do some rounds around this, but at this point you can kind of see the shape is coming together. So now that we've finished this section, let's move in to working in the round. So this is a good point to mark a few spots on the work, because from here we're going to be working in the round now. So we're no longer going to go across that row of 3. We're going to be coming down this way. And the petal is going to be such that this is the top of the petal. This is where our point will have to be. So I'm going to mark the middle stitch here so that I know this is an area that we need to add a little more height. So I'll probably switch to double crochets here. And then here's the other side of the petal. And then I will mark also the bottom center of the petal because we need to add a little bit of a stem here so that we have something to stitch together in the end. So the top and bottom of the petal are now marked. So I'm going to chain 1 and I'm actually going to turn the work. I've decided I'm going to start going across the work and then down to the bottom of the petal. So I'm going to single crochet across that row of 3 stitches, 1 single crochet in each one of those 3. And then I'm going to start working down the side towards the bottom. So I'm going to put 1 single crochet in the first stitch of each row, and that'll create a nice straight line. We won't have any rippling. Even though it's the side of a row, just put 1 in the first space available for every row until we get down to that stitch marker. So I'm just gonna zip down and I'll meet you once I get to the stitch marker to show you what we're gonna do next. All right, I made it down to the first stitch marker here, and we need to create a little bit of a row extension here. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna single crochet into that stitch, then I'm gonna chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Then I'm going to treat this like a new row. So I'm going to single crochet in the second chain from the hook, and then I'll single crochet in the third chain from the hook, and then I will single crochet again into that same top stitch. So all in that 1 stitch, it's single crochet, chain 3, single crochet into the 2 stitches, and single crochet all in 1, and it creates this point, which is going to be kind of the stem side of the flower petal. From here, I'm just going to continue my way up until I get around all the way to the top stitch marker. So I'm just going to crochet around this edge, up along this side, and up along the side towards the top, and I'll meet you when I get to that next stitch marker. All right, so here I am at the other end. I have 2 spaces. I have 1 space and then my stitch marker space. So in the stitch before the stitch marker, I'm going to do a half double crochet there. So yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. So that's the stitch before the stitch marker. Now in the stitch markered stitch, I'm going to do a double crochet. So yarn over, insert into that center spot, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And I'm going to do that 3 times. So there's 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, there's 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, there's 3. And that got us around that upper tip. And then in the next stitch, so the stitch after that middle stitch, I'm going to do a half double crochet again. And from here, I'm going to single crochet in the first spot on every row, the first available space, 1 stitch for every row, all the way back down until I get to the end here. And I'll meet you back there to show you what we're going to do next. All right, here I am at the end of my round. I'm just going to put my last single crochet in, and then I'm going to join my round at that first stitch we did with a slip stitch, just like that. And now let me show you how the shape is changing. So we added those extra stitches here, and because they were taller stitches, we end up with a more pointy shape, which is awesome. And now the next round, what we're going to be doing is we're going to single crochet around for the next round, but we are going to again add a little bit more height on this side, and we're going to add in our point because this needs to have a point on it to be like a proper looking trillium. So it's a single crochet around until we get up to that middle spot. So I'm going to stitch marker that middle stitch, so I know that's where we have to do some fun stuff. Otherwise, just 1 single crochet in each stitch. When you get to the stem, just single crochet around it 1 time in each stitch because it's not supposed to actually be a stem. So I'm going to zoom through it until I get back up to this side because that's when there's actually some new instruction. But until then, just single crochet and I'll meet you at the stitch marker. Oh, I need to hop on here to let you know at the stem side, you're going to put 3 single crochets into that last stitch of that row, and that'll turn the work around so that you can keep single crocheting. So at that stem side, put 3 single crochets in the last stitch. All right, I've made it to the stitch marker now, and in the stitch before the stitch marker, again, I'm gonna do a half double crochet. And now in the stitch marker, we're going to be doing something a little different. It's gonna be real cool. So we're gonna start with a double crochet, just a regular double crochet, and then we'll do a second double crochet. And after that second double crochet, chain 2. 1 and 2. Now in the top of that double crochet right here, we're going to insert just like that, and then we're going to yarn over and pull through both for a little picot stitch on top of our chain, our double crochet. And then in that same stitch, 1 more double crochet. And do you see what that does? It creates a little point on top of our work. Let me show it to you one more time because I want you to be able to get it. Okay, so I did the first double crochet. Then I do a second double crochet in the same stitch, chain 2, 1 and 2. Then in the top of the double crochet, so that's right here, I'll insert my hook, yarn over and pull through both. And then 1 more double crochet. And then after that, we'll do a half double crochet in the next stitch. And now we can see how that created a little point on the end of our flower. So I'm gonna get through the rest of this row and I'll meet you at the end to show you what we're gonna do next to continue and actually finish off this petal. All right, at the end of that round, the petal shape is pretty much complete. Now we just need to add a ruffle to the outside of it, but we don't wanna add too much size. So I am going to just do single crochets for the ruffle. I'm gonna join my round with a slip stitch, then I'll chain 1, and let me zoom you in to show you how I'll do it. So in the first stitch, I'm going to put 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. Now, the chain 1 we started the round with also counts as one of our single crochets, so we actually have 3 in this one stitch. Now, in the next stitch, we're gonna put 2 single crochets. There's 1 and there's 2. In the next stitch, 3 single crochets. There's 1, 2, and 3. Then in the next stitch, 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. Then in the next stitch, 3 single crochets, and in the one after that, 2 single crochets. And I'm gonna repeat that all the way around. When I get to the stem side or the stem section of the petal, I'll probably stop around here and just single crochet normally and then start up again here with the 3, 2, 3 pattern. So I'm going to just zoom across until we are closer to the top tip of the petal to show you how we're going to get around there without losing that sort of sharp look. But I'm just gonna zoom through the first bit because it's just a repeat of 3 single crochets in one stitch, 2 single crochets in the next, 3 single crochets in one, 2 in the next, and I'll meet you, like I said, at the top of the petal. All right, here I am just about at the top of the leaf. I just did 2 single crochets in one stitch. And now, just for the tip here, I'm not going to do the 3 single crochets in the next. I'll do 1 in the next, 1 in the next, and now in that picot, I'm gonna just do 1 single crochet, and then I'm gonna do a chain 1, and then 1 single crochet in that same spot, just to keep that point. Then I'll do 1 single crochet in the next, 1 in the next, and that brings us back to where I'm gonna be putting 2 in the next stitch. There's 1, there's 2, and then I'll repeat 2 in one stitch, 3 in the next, 2 in one stitch, 3 in the next, until I get to the end of the round. I'll see you there. Here I am just coming up to the end of that round, and I'm doing my 3 single crochets, and then the last stitch of the round will be 2 single crochets, 1 and 2, and now I can join my round at the top of the chain 1 with a slip stitch, and I can pull the yarn through at this point, cut it, and weave it in, because that is it for the petal. It's perfect. Look at that. It's got just the right amount of ruffle for a trillium. Oh, it's perfect. Okay, so you need to make 3 of these, and now let's make the leaf. All right, so for the leaf, we're going to repeat the exact same process that we did for these petals up to the ruffle. We're not going to put the ruffle on. So I'm gonna zoom through making my first leaf until I'm at that point. I'm going to copy exactly the petal. So you make the petal 3 times, and then you switch to green and make the petal, but don't put that last row of ruffles on. And I will meet you back here once I get to that point to show you what we'll do to make the leaf, and the petal, the petal. All right, I've made it around that first round of single crochets up to the point where we would start the ruffle if we were making the petal, but this is a leaf, so we're not doing that. Instead, we're gonna join with a slip stitch, chain 1, and then we're going to just single crochet 1 time in each stitch around. So we're not gonna do any of the 3 single crochets in one, 2 single crochets in the next. We're just gonna do 1 single crochet in each stitch until we get to the top of the leaf, the tip top. We're gonna do single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in that stitch just to keep the point that we have there from doing our picot. All right, here I am at that top stitch. Just going to put a single crochet in the stitch, chain 1, and a single crochet all in that same stitch to keep our point nice and pointy. And then I'm going to continue my single crochet around until I get down to the bottom of our leaf stem, and I'm going to do the same thing when I'm at the bottom stem. I'm going to put single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in that last stitch. Otherwise, I'm just going to single crochet down this row. So I'll zip through it and I will meet you at end of the round to show you what we'll do next. All right, here it is at the end of that second round. And now we're going to do one more round here, and we're going to do the same thing for both ends of the leaf. We're just going to work in the round, just 1 single crochet in each stitch. In the top stitch of the leaf, we'll put a single crochet, a chain 1, and a single crochet. And then in the top stitch of that stem, we'll do the same thing, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. Otherwise, I'm just going to single crochet 1 time in each stitch around. And I think this might be our last round. So I'm just gonna zoom my way around these single crochets and I'll meet you back here to show you what it's looking like. We can measure it and we'll talk about what we gotta do next. All right, and there is how it's looking like at the end of that last round. And I think the size is perfect. It's just about the same size as the petal. And in a trillium, those are almost the same size. So for measurements, the leaf is about 4 inches across and about 5 inches long. And the petal is about 5 inches across and about 5.5 inches long. So you need 3 petals, you need 3 leaves. I'll meet you back here once I finish those. Okay, so I've got these leaves and petals done now. We're going to be assembling the leaves and petals soon into their final form, but let me just show you how cute it looks when you've got all 3. Look how cute! It looks just like a trillium! And then there will be the 3 leaves on the stem underneath it. Very cool. So there's still a section of leaf that we need to create, and that's the part that goes in between the petals. A little pointy leaf comes out between the petals. And I think I'm gonna work that one in the round as one shape, I think. So to do that, making those leaves, and then we'll make the stem and then we'll put it all together. Let me zoom you in for the beginning of this. So I'm gonna start with a chain. I think I'll start with a chain of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then the first chain we did, the 5th chain from the hook, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I'm gonna slip stitch that closed to create a little round, a little donut. Then I will chain 1. Then I'm going to single crochet 8 times in the round here. There are 9 single crochets total though, because that chain 1 will count as 1. So that first single crochet was 2, then 3, 4, 8, and 9. There we go. And now I'm going to join this round at the top of that chain 1 with a slip stitch, and then I'm going to chain 1. Now I'm going to use 3 stitch markers to mark 3 spots equally separated. So I'm going to mark the first stitch, then I'll leave the next 2 empty, 3rd stitch, or 1st stitch, 2nd, 3rd empty, 4th stitch mark, 5, 6, empty, 7 mark. That's what I'm gonna do. All right, so now I've marked every 3rd stitch. The 1st stitch is gonna be our first one, so there's no mark in there. I'm gonna start this round with a chain of 1. Now in the 1st stitch, I'm going to do a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, all in the same spot. Then in the next 2 stitches, we're just gonna do 1 single crochet in each, 1 and 2. And now we are at the next marked stitch. So in that marked stitch, we're going to do double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So there's double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. And then in the next 2 stitches, single crochets. There's 1, and there's number 2. Now we're at the last stitch marker. Pull that out. In the stitch marker, I'm going to do double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. There's my double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, all in the same stitch. And now we have one more stitch in the round because that first stitch is our chain 1. So in our last stitch of the round, we'll do a single crochet, and then we'll join the round at the chain 1 that we started the round with. And that has created 3 little lobes here, you see? So we're now going to elongate those to make them into kind of triangles for the 3 lobed leaves under the flower. Let's do the next round. So we'll start the next round with a chain of 1. Then we'll single crochet into the base of the chain 1 for our first stitch there. And that brings us to the space between our 2 double crochets. So in that space, the chain space between our double crochets, I'm going to do double crochet, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and double crochet. So there's 4 stitches in the corner stitch now, just like that. And then in the stitches moving across, we're going to do single crochets. So 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, and 3. And that brings us back to the chain 1 space between our 2 double crochets. So in that chain 1 space, we're going to do 2 double crochets, 1, 2, then a chain 1, then 2 more double crochets all in the same space, 1, and there we go. Then we'll single crochet into the next 3 stitches until we're at another chain 1 space. So there's 1, 2, and 3 single crochets, which brings us to our next chain 1 space. And in that chain 1 space, we're going to do 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets. So there's 1 and 2, chain 1, 2 more double crochets, 1 and 2. And then our last stitch of the round, 1 and 2. And then we'll join the round with a slip stitch at that first chain 1. And now you can see those lobes have gotten a little bit bigger. Now it's time for us to get them to be pointed. Actually, we have one more round before the point. So we'll start with a chain 1. Then in the first stitch, we'll do a single crochet. In the second stitch, we're going to do a double crochet. And in the third stitch, we're at that chain 1 space. In the third stitch, we're going to do 3 double crochets. There's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. In the next stitch, we'll do 1 double crochet, and then in the next 2 stitches, single crochets. There's 1, and there's 2. Oh my goodness, I miscounted again. 4. In the next 4 stitches, we do single crochets. Then in the next stitch, we do a double crochet, and then we're at the chain 1 space. We're gonna do 3 double crochets in that spot. 1, 2, and 3. And then in the next stitch, a double crochet. Then in the next 4 stitches, single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then in the next stitch, a double crochet. Then in that next stitch, which is a chain 1 space, we're going to do 3 double crochets. There's 1, 2, and 3. And now in the next stitch, a double crochet. And then in the next 3 stitches, single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And then I'll join the round with a slip stitch. Beautiful. And those 3 add up to 4 because the first stitch was a single crochet. All right, so here is the shape. The next step of this shape is going to be us bringing this out into a point. So we're going to do that by doing double crochet with a picot, double crochet, all in those corner stitches. So let's jump in to what I think is the last round of these leaves. So I've marked the center stitch for the double crochets. So I'm going to start with a chain of 1. I'll single crochet into the base and then into the next stitch as well. And now we're 1 stitch away from our stitch marker. So in that stitch, I'm going to do a double crochet. Then in the stitch marker stitch, I can pull that out. I'm going to do 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. And now I'm going to do a picot. So I'm going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that double crochet. And then after that, 1 more double crochet in the exact same stitch. And now if you see, that makes this nice little point here. Now after we did our last double crochet, we're gonna do another double crochet in the next stitch, and then we'll single crochet across this row until we hit the stitch before the middle one on the next corner. So I'll just single crochet across, and here I am coming up to that next stitch marker. And right before I hit the stitch marker, here I am, I have 1 stitch before the marker. I'm going to do a double crochet in that stitch. Then in the stitch with the stitch marker, I'll pull that out. And in that stitch, I'm going to do 2 double crochets. There's 1 and there's 2. Then I will do a picot. So after the double crochet, I'll chain 2, 1 and 2. Then I'll slip stitch into the top of the double crochet to close that picot. And then I'll do 1 more double crochet in that corner stitch. Then a double crochet in the stitch after it. Otherwise, I'm going to single crochet across to the next corner. And at the next corner, I'm going to do the exact same thing. So the stitch before the middle, I'm going to do a double crochet just about there. So the stitch before the middle right here, I'm going to do a double crochet. And then the middle stitch itself, which is this one here, I'm going to do 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. Then I'll chain 2, 1 and 2, slip stitch into the top of the double crochet, and then double crochet 1 more time into that corner stitch, and then we'll do a double crochet in the next stitch as well. From here, we're just going to single crochet to the end of the round, and I will meet you when I get there. Here we are. I'm going to join the round here, 1 more single crochet. I'll join the round with a slip stitch, and that's all we're going to need for those 3 little leaves. They're not going to be 3 separate leaves. They're just going to be 1 piece, but you'll see once we actually stitch this to the flower, it's going to look like 3 little leaf segments that will be behind the flower. So at this point, I can cut my yarn, weave it in, and now let's make the stem so we can put this thing together. So to support the weight of my flower, I'm going to be using a knitting needle as my stem, but I need to cover it. So I need to make a rectangle that is wide enough that we can wrap it around here and stitch it on, and long enough that it'll cover the whole knitting needle. I think I might use a thinner one than that. So to do so, I am going to do a chain of 50, I think 50. I'll do a chain of 50, and then I'm going to just single crochet 3 rows with that chain of 50. So I'm not going to specify this part because I'm just going to do chain of 50, single crochet into the second chain from the hook, single crochet down the row, chain 1 and turn, single crochet down the row, chain 1 and turn, I think. So 3 rows. So I'll meet you back here once I'm done my 50 stitch long 3-row wide little rectangle for the stem. See you then. All right, I made it to the end of my rectangle. I'm gonna pull through, and I'm gonna pull through a long tail because I think I'm gonna use the tail to sew the stem together, and that is gonna be the next step. We are now moving on to the assembly. So before we do that, let's look at all the parts together. First, we have these 3 green leaves. These are going to be about halfway up the stem. Then we have this triangle, which is going to look like 3 green leaves that'll be going the opposite direction. No, wait, the same direction, because the petals will go in the opposite direction of the leaves, or opposite configuration, and there's the look. And then we will have the stem. Oh my gosh, it's gonna look like a trillium, I'm sure of it. So now let's put the stem together. So for the stem, I've decided to use this wooden knitting needle. This is a 4mm knitting needle that I just haven't found myself using. They were gifted to me by Candace, thanks Candace, but I haven't found myself using them, and I think this would be the perfect job for them because I can use the pointy end to stick it into soil, like into one of my plant pots if I want, but it also gives a good sturdy base for the flower to sit on so the flower doesn't droop. So I'm going to consider the top of the knitting needle also the top of the flower, and then the bottom of the knitting needle, the pointy part, will be the part that will just be the bottom of the stem. So let's jump in. With my yarn tail all threaded up, I'm just going to jump right into this. I'm going to insert my needle a couple of stitches up diagonally from where the yarn comes out from, and that is going to draw that corner up around the ball of that knitting needle. Then I'm going to come up through the new corner that I just made by pulling that tight, and then I'm going to come back down just at the bottom of like 3 stitches in diagonally the other way. Wow, that's hard to explain. I'm basically just closing up the bottom here in a way that covers the knitting needle's head and will keep the stem from kind of like slipping off of this sort of situation. So now is when we're getting into the actual stitch I'm gonna do to close the seam. So here I'm gonna insert my needle into the next stitch from inside to outside, pull that all the way through, nice and tight, and then from inside to outside again, but now through the next stitch on the front side, I'm gonna pull the needle through there and pull that nice and tight. And then I'll go into the next stitch on the back side from inside to outside, pull it all the way through, and then coming down again from inside to outside on the front part of the fabric, just like that. And I'm just going to repeat that all the way up this stem. It takes a little while, but it's totally worth it. The seam is virtually invisible and it's super easy. So I'm just gonna stitch this closed, and when I get to the top of the stem, I'll meet you back there to show you what we're gonna do next to put together this trillium. All right, so I've just finished putting the entire seam together, so our stem is done. I'm just gonna tie these two ends together in a knot, and then I'll weave them in to the stem and then trim them. And then it's gonna be time to put on the leaves and petals. All right, so for this next part, I'm gonna take the leaves, and then on the end that I'm counting as the stem end, I'm gonna say this is the top of my leaf. I'm gonna flip it upside down and put it on top of the stem, about halfway, maybe a little bit higher than halfway down the stem, like that. And then I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna stitch this thing all where the stem connects. So not on the leaf, but as soon as I get to this little tuft, I'm gonna stitch around to the stem until I get back to here, and that's where it's going to be connected, so that when the leaf falls open, it'll sit like straight out, hopefully, like how a trillium sits. And we're going to be doing that 3 times, once for all 3 leaves. So let me zoom you in and we'll do the first one. So I've threaded up my yarn needle with a nice long piece of green yarn, and I'm just going to weave the end in by starting my stitch way earlier than I need to, and then I'll pull my needle through. And now I'm gonna start stitching the stem to the leaf, but only where that sort of corner comes out. Once it starts getting to be higher up on the leaf, we don't want to be attaching that sort of spot. So I'll just pull through the first stitch. I'm gonna go through the stem and through the next stitch, like that. Then I'll pull that tight. Then I'll go through the stem again and through the next stitch. I'm just gonna do that all the way around the leaf, connecting the stem to the leaf, getting it nice and secure, and then the leaf will sit out nice and straight. So I'm gonna zoom through these stitches because it's more of the same through the stem, through the leaf, and I'm just gonna go all the way around where the 2 fabrics join. So I'll see you once I've gotten closer to the end of joining this leaf. All right, so there's the first leaf put on, and we can fold it out so that it sits nice and straight. Now I'm gonna do the exact same thing with the next leaf. The only thing I'm gonna try and make sure I do is I wanna make sure this is not directly across from the first one. I want it to be offset because we need to fit 3 of them equally onto one space. So I'm gonna go do the exact same thing with the second one and the third one. Since I have a nice long yarn tail here, I'm just gonna keep stitching like that. And I'll repeat that until I've got all 3 leaves attached to the stem. And I'll meet you back here once I'm at that point, because it's gonna take me a little while to just do all of these stitches, but I'm just gonna stitch all 3 leaves on, and I'll come back here to show you what it looks like, and then we'll get started on putting together the flower. Okay, so the leaves are looking a little floppier than I want them to. So what I think I'm gonna do, because I want them to sit about, I would say about here in terms of like the stiffness I want them, I'm gonna weave in my yarn needle through all the stitches basically at this height, and then I'm gonna kind of drawstring it closed just so that it sits kind of like this naturally. That's my plan. So let's see if I can get that to happen. All right, so by taking that, weaving it through, and then just pulling on it just a little, I'm able to sort of force the leaves to stay in this upright position without it showing any puckering on the leaf, which is perfect. So I'm going to now just sort of stitch a little extra, a little more across on my final leaf. And then I'll just stitch down this row back to the stem, and I'll just go right through the stem and then weave the end in. And now the leaves are done. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for the flower part. We're gonna have to use yellow now, and I'm concerned about how we're going to do it. All right, there we go. Ends woven in, trim down my ends, et voila. Nice, stiff trillium leaves. Perfect. Now it's time for the flower. All right, so I'm looking at a picture of a trillium and the inside has yellow stamens. Is that the right word? The inner parts of the flower are yellow. I thought the actual petal was yellow, but it's not. So we're gonna be putting the petals together, I think with white, and then we'll be using these yellows to make those pieces, but I don't know how. I think I might just do what I did with the other guys on my other flowers, and I'll just do a bit of a here. I'm gonna figure it out. So first with my darker yellow, I'm gonna just wrap the yarn around my fingers a couple of times, like maybe 5 or 6 times. Then I'll cut my yarn and then I'm gonna cut the yarn again. Oh, actually no, I can leave it looped like this and cut it after. So this loops of yarn, I'm gonna stitch down in the flower and then we'll open it up, cut these open, and it'll be kind of like a pom-pom coming out of the flower, but just a few, which is what they have. And now we're going to put the petal part together. So similar to the leaves, these need to be stitched together in such a way that they will hold their form, and they need to be a little bit folded at the bottom of the petals because there's kind of a hollow space at the bottom of trilliums like this. So what I think I'm gonna do to start is I'm gonna stitch each trillium up and then connect them? Or do I just start? Maybe I'll just go through all of them and just YOLO it. I think that'll work. I'm gonna use thread for this because I have white thread right here and it'll be a lot less resistance. So I'm gonna use a long double strand of cotton yarn. And now let's just do it. So I'm gonna start by inserting the needle through a row just so that this is me weaving my end in. And then I'll have it come down, I'll have it come out through the bottom of the petal, which is where we're going to be connecting it to the others. Great, white thread. Super. This part is just not going to be fun for any of us. Let me zoom you in to show you what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm pinching the bottom of the petal together like this, and I'm going to pinch the bottom of the next petal and put it up against my first petal, and then I'll pinch my third petal after. So first I've got these two pinched together. I'm going to insert the needle through both of them, just like that. I'm just going to go through both pieces with the fold to kind of get the securing started, just so that they have a bit of an anchor point here up to about there. So I've done 2 or 3 stitches, and now I'm gonna grab the next petal and I'm going to stick it over to the first one like that. And then I'm going to insert my needle down through I'm not on camera, through this one and this one. This portion of the video is not gonna be super useful because it's white on white on white and I don't know how to make it focus. All right, so now I'm going to hold my petals with my fingers like this. I'm gonna put one finger in each petal because there is a little stitch holding them together. But now I'm gonna take a couple of minutes and I'm just going to insert my yarn needle through all of the pieces in a bunch of different ways. I'm not really doing any specific stitch. I'm just deciding where to put my yarn needle and putting it through. And that's just gonna connect all these petals together in a little bit more of a secure way before we start with the yellow part. All right, so now at this point, this bottom part is mostly stitched together. We still are gonna have to add a couple stitches to keep that stiffness the way we want it. But before we do any of that, we have to add the yellow fluffy bits. I don't know why I can't remember what they're called. You know what they're called. And I'm gonna do that by putting the yarn into the middle of the flower, fold it over like that. And then the yarn needle, I'm gonna insert it up through the bottom of the flower on one side of the yarn, and then I'll come down through the middle of the flower again on the other side of that little grouping of yarn. And now you can see that stitched it down. And then I'm going to split it just like that with my hands. And where we came down, I'm gonna go back up through the flower again. And again, I'm gonna come back down on the other side of the yellow, just like that. And this part isn't gonna get like screwed around with, so I don't really think it needs much more than that. But there, now we can cut those, and then those will be the little yellow parts on our trillium. All right, so now that that's stitched on, we're gonna flip this over, and we're going to put the little triangle that we made that is going to look like a leaf, we're gonna put that on now. So this is going to be sitting on the bottom of the flower like this, and these little triangles, we want them to kind of appear more leaf-like. So how we're gonna do that first is we're gonna take our yarn needle, and I'm gonna take the triangle, and I'm going to kind of cut the tip off of each of the triangle sides about halfway through it. Does that look right? And I'll just fish my yarn needle through there with the thread still like this, and then inserting back into the work and doing the same thing with the next triangle. I promise it'll make sense, I think. think, my plan. And then come out and insert into the top, cutting off the tip of the third tip of the triangle. And you should come out pretty much where you first went in with the thread. And there we go. And now I'm gonna pull this tight, not too tight because I don't want the yarn to break or the thread to break, but tight enough that these kind of turn into, oh, I missed a whole angle here, that these kind of turn into a leaf shape. That's what we're looking for. So there'll be kind of a bulgy spot in the middle, and that's the spot that the flower will sit right inside of. See what I did? So that triangle, by pulling on those, turned it into 3 separate leaves, and then kind of a hollow cup shape, and we can insert the flower right into that. Doesn't that look good? It's like perfect. So from here, I'm just going to use my needle and thread and just tack a bunch of stitches through both the green and the flower. So the little stemmy bit, I'm putting some stitches through, and then the petals, I'm going through them again as well. I'm just kind of getting everything really well secured together, or as best I can. All right, so there is how it's looking after we've trimmed the center and stitched on the back. Now it's time to stitch it onto the stem. We're gonna insert that rounded stem portion right to the back of the flower, and then we're going to use tons of little whip stitches just to connect these two. And then I think we're almost done. Look at how cute this is. So we want to have the petals opposite the leaves. Just keep that in mind. You want them offset. So I'm gonna stitch that down and I'll come back here once I finish that step. It looks so good. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, I think I've got all the stitches on, and now I'm just going to weave the end in by inserting it down through the stem. And then guess what, guys? It's finished! Ta-da! Here it is! What do you think? The crocheted Trillium flower. I think this turned out so cute. I am keeping this as home decor for myself. It sticks perfectly in one of my larger plant pots, and I think it just adds such a fun little whimsical detail to my already planty area. But what do you think? I think it turned out really accurate. This looks like a Trillium. I mean, I'm really pleased with it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and if you did like this video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. It really is the best way to show your support for the channel. Yeah, I'd really appreciate if you could do that. Also, thank you to everyone who's supporting the channel right now. Here's the list of channel supporters. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate you. If you want to join the supporting group and check out all the ways that you can show your support, look in the description of the video. All the links will be there. Anyways, friends, that's all I've got for you today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next week. Bye!